as we think about our portfolio, you're not planting the same product for 10 years anymore. It's like, hey, that new product is better than the product I have today. I need to know quicker in the field how it's going to, be positioned on my fields, on my acres, across my entire operation.
Welcome to Around the Farm, the podcast about all things ag. I'm your host, Tom Versman, and with me as always is Andy Fulta. Andy, how you doing today?
I'm good. It's good to be back in the studio, Tom.
It is. It's great to be back, and it's starting to get a little cooler outside, but hey, it's fun to be here with you, and we got some great guests today.
We do. We're here to talk, all things DEKALB, corn, how things are progressing through the harvest season, and I see we have two guests here. One of them is wearing a vest, so it must be a little bit colder out there, isn't it?
I like the vest.
Well, it warmed up a little bit, but this morning it was the first time I saw frost in Southern Illinois.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's getting to be cooler. We had the heat kick on, actually. But hey, if this is your first time watching, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell. You can listen to us anywhere you get podcasts. And again, big shout out to our sponsor, FieldView. So excited to be here. Let's do some intros. Jamie, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so Jamie Horton. I'm the DEKALB brand manager. I've been in this role for about 3 years. I've been with the company since 2018. I'm a trained agronomist, so prior to coming onto the marketing side, I was an agronomist in Southern Illinois for DEKALB Agro. I actually still live in Southern Illinois. It's where I was born and raised, and have a passion for all things in the 618 of Southern Illinois.
618, that's right. What's your zip code or area code?
You mean like phone code?
Phone code.
The 636.
It's the 636 out in Troy.
Well, Hawk Point, Missouri.
Hawk Point,
big
that's
town
right.
of Hawk Point. Yeah.
At least they were 314, but that's okay.
Yeah, getting us back on course.
Yeah, that's right.
Alex, you're also here joining us. We don't just have Jamie.
I'm a 515 guy.
A 515, there it is.
I'm from Iowa originally, so I'm the technical lead for our corn business. So my job is to all the new products DEKALB gets every year out of our breeding teams. My team would be commercializing those. I'm a trained breeder, though, so close to an agronomist, Jamie. I was a breeder for Monsanto for about 7 years prior to coming to this role. I've been doing this for the last 5 years, but do hail from central Iowa.
Okay.
Dad and uncle are up there cutting corn today as we speak. So
Excellent.
it's doing really good.
Frost this morning up there?
We had a little bit of frost this morning, but we're at 15%, and we're just going to take it right to the bin and have a good time.
Excellent.
So we're really happy.
So we have a trained breeder and a trained agronomist. Tom, what are you a trained person of?
I went to school to talk, I guess, is what we do.
That's right. So we have 2 bachelor degrees, and then we have 2 elevated degrees, which is just great to have.
Yep. It's like when we had your sister and my brother, it felt like on. It's, it makes us feel a little smarter.
That's right.
But it's who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, it is. It is truly about the people you bring yourself. So, thinking about what we're going to talk about today, Tom. So we have the technical side of the corn, and we have the experience side of the corn, right?
And what excites me about both of you being here too is there's been a lot that's happened in the last few years. There's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of good things happening with the DEKALB brand. We've seen a lot of interesting things happening in corn. We've got Preceon coming. So I think we have a really good episode ahead with a bunch of different topics we could go down. But why don't we start maybe just with a little bit of recap of this year, just kind of a start to finish, and maybe that'll lead to some other conversations too. So Jamie, maybe tee up a little bit on the DEKALB brand and what was new and things maybe you did differently this year and what really got you excited.
Yeah, I think from a DEKALB perspective, we've seen a really strong refresh in our portfolio overall. I think it's kind of cool that in 25 here, we had 25 new products for the brand, 25 and 25. I don't know who thought of that or how you guys chose that, but I like it. Keep it going. And so we continue to refresh our portfolio. Of course, performance is what we stand for within the DEKALB brand. And so continuing to bring those types of products out and elevate, how we're bringing those to market. And then also, even from a seed treatment perspective, continue to add on there so that we're bringing the best products to our growers.
And y'all did some meetings too this year. It's your first time doing, I believe, DEKALB Innovation Days. How did those go, and what was your thought on that?
Yeah, so from an Innovation Day standpoint, it was really cool. So as we built out, where do we want to be? We want to stand for innovation, and it gets a little confusing in all honesty when you talk about innovation. It's kind of a buzzword or a big word, but how do we get specific and bring that type of elevated experience to our growers? And so we had 5 different Innovation Days. One still has to happen over in Indiana, but we had them throughout. much of the U.S., those 5 key innovation days that we had some awesome leaders get to go and meet with growers. I was able to attend one in Minnesota where we actually went to the Viking Stadium.
That's awesome.
And so it was an awesome experience at U.S. Bank, and we got to walk on the field and with our growers and showcase to them all the innovation that Bayer and DEKALB's bringing out here in 26 and also beyond.
So that was more grower focused that you were taking there. So, what were some of the responses from the customers when we're talking about innovation? Because obviously Bayer's thought of as an innovation company. What were some of the things that we shared with them there and that they were really latching onto?
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about some of the new products that are coming out. From a corn perspective, we mentioned Preceon, but also, Viconic is a new soybean trait that we're launching and starting to talk about. And we've got some, herbicides coming out too. So as we think through like the whole Bayer system, we're able to highlight that and be able to solve problems that growers have in different areas. And down south, talk about cotton too. We, have Delta Pine Cotton, which is a great partner with us, and really being able to have that whole farm solution for growers. And there was a lot of excitement of, hey, here's some things that I deal with. Here's what's working really well. But like what's on the horizon already as you think through being on the front lines and DEKALB being able to put those growers in the best position moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And, before we started talking here today, there was a little soundbite that I don't think got captured, but the best part about a soybean acre is that eventually it'll become a corn acre. Isn't that right?
Isn't that right, Alex?
That's absolutely right. And I think that's been over 100 years in DEKALB, right? Where you think of DEKALB innovation, it's something that over 100 years ago, some of the first hybrids ever commercialized were in DEKALB. And as we got even more mature, as you think about the modern day, most of our competitors will be on their 2nd or 3rd generation traits.
Yeah.
We're on our 4th and 5th generation traits. So as you think about bringing new solutions on rootworm to herbicide tolerance, those are all things that are really going to be meaningful for growers and much sooner than we think about our competitors coming to market as well. So it was exciting to be part of the innovation days and talk about not just the future, but also the strong past innovation story that exists in the DEKALB brand.
Yeah, and think about that, Pat. So before I came into this role, I spent 4 years out in the Pacific Northwest, so very different market, didn't deal a lot with corn and soy. But so when you think about the last several years, what is kind of that story of innovation that we've had over the last maybe 3 to 5 years? Where has corn come over the last couple of years? Because we talk a lot about where it's going in the future with things like Preceon.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is if you look at the last 10 years, there's no normal year anymore. The new normal is not normal. And I think that's something that the DEKALB brand has done remarkably well, is the consistency of that experience that you have year over year over year. And it's really because you have such that rich history of strong genetics, but we also have just some of the most excellent people in the field in the DEKALB brand, breeders who are very in touch with our growers to know what the needs are. And when you think about the last 5 years particularly, that yield stability with everything being different. Was Southern Rust on your bingo card this year again in the Midwest? Absolutely not. But hey, guess what? We are really strong on Southern Rust. We got ratings in our book, unlike some of our competitors like Pioneer, and we feel confident that, hey, this is how this product's going to do in a year that you didn't expect it to be as high of pressure as it was, especially in Iowa.
Yeah. I go back to almost like the strong reach, strong stalks. You mentioned strong multiple times. I mean, it still rings true. And even if I go back in time to back in the 1930s, I mean, there's a lot of innovation that changes, but all in all, it holds true with DEKALB being the mortgage lifter. And when times are tough, the consistency and the performance that we have with DEKALB is something that was true in the 1930s. It's true in the 2020s that we're in today, and I think it will be into the future.
So we haven't talked about this, but a little bit of history. So we talk about the mortgage lifter and the history of DEKALB going way back. Can you talk a little bit about the logo of DEKALB and the legacy of it? Yeah, there's a meaning in there.
Yeah, so if you think about the mortgage lifter and the winged ear, if you are passing field signs and looking at field signs out in the marketplace, you always see that wing flying out of the field because the yields are flying out of the field. And really, it's for somebody that has a lot of passion around DEKALB, whenever you see that field sign facing the wrong way, it takes about everything out of me not to stop on the side of the highway.
Flip it around.
Yeah, and just get out and flip it, which I have been known to do before. But yeah.
So if you see Jamie in your fields, just be aware she's just making the sign right.
And a little call to action for anybody that's putting up a DEKALB sign: make sure that ear's flying out.
That's right, 100%. 100%.
And it's actually, I think a lot of folks know it. We think about, we're so closely tied to it. You think, oh, everyone knows that DEKALB logo. Mm-hmm. Actually, a lot of people outside of the ag industry know it as well. If we look at market research, it's the number 2 most recognized agricultural logo behind any logo that's out there.
Yeah.
I know whenever I'm in an airport somewhere, I can mention, I'm work with DEKALB, and they may not have any ties to farming, but they've seen it before, recognize that logo, which is really something that's cool, and I don't think a lot of brands can say.
Jamie, one of the things that's cool about your career, like you said, is you were an agronomist by trade, and then now you're on the brand. How does that help you when you're thinking about that broader DEKALB brand experience, knowing the agronomic piece, but then also now being a brand expert?
Yeah, I think the thing that was for me as I came into this, going from agronomy and having a super focus on that and coming to marketing was I need to rely on my team. I was very fortunate to come into a strong team of folks that are trained in the marketing side. And I think for me, it was able to bring a strong suit from an agronomy side. For instance, if we're looking at, social media reviews or any type of review for that matter, it's great to say, hey, that doesn't maybe look right. That doesn't look like good corn, or maybe that's the wrong time of year for what we're seeing here, and being able to have that kind of pulse on the business of, hey, here's what the problem is. Here's how we can help address those challenges from a marketing side.
Love it. I got one more for both of you too. This is kind of a fun one. And this may be a tough question to answer. Favorite DEKALB hybrid?
All-time favorite?
All-time favorite. It doesn't, it could be off the market today. All-time favorite.
This one is still on the market. I'm going to go with 6595. This was a product, I go back to Southern Illinois, it handles, because it's still on the market, about any situation that you put it in. It had the consistency, it had the test weight, it had everything that you looked for in a product that could handle a tough, light, drought acre, but it also had the top end yield potential. So from an agronomist, from somebody that wanted something that I could place about anywhere, that was the product that I had to have as a go-to.
For me, the hybrid is so clear. I'm going to give a shout out to our northern teams. It's a legendary hybrid in the north, and it's a 54, 38, and 40. And why I love this hybrid so much is, one, the most successful breeder in the DEKALB brand in history for over 30 years. It was his favorite hybrid. And why he loved it so much was it just every acre it could go on in the north. It came right out of the ground, but it could go west. It fit well into the Goss, the green snap areas of the west, but it could go east into Ohio. And that's because it was actually bred from not just Minnesota, but it brought together germplasm from the entire United States. And it was something that really put us back on the map in the north and took us forever to find a replacement that growers could have such a consistent experience with, because it yielded like 110 day back 15, 20 years ago when we really started breeding and commercializing that hybrid. It's an awesome number and legendary number in today.
Love that.
Super interesting. I do have a follow-up. So I am I'm interested because we had my sister on who works in biotech for Bayer, and we talked all about that process and how they're working on things, 10 to 15 years before they get to a commercial field. Can you unpack a little bit of what the breeding experience and that process looks like? Yeah,
I think you have to start with our people. Our breeders are the most elite breeders that we can have in the United States. And what I really think makes them so special is you're taught that breeding is an art and a science, and these ladies and gentlemen bring both. So on average, you have about a 4 to 6 period of time, years of time of testing in a field before a DEKALB grower would experience that. Now, that might seem like a long time or a short time, depending who you are, but when you start with 7 septillion hybrid combinations.
Septillion?
How many? Septillion. I tried to figure this out. That is like a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot of zeros.
I got an ag ed degree. A lot
like
is a number
25. I actually tried to figure out this out the other day. It's 25 billion Milky Way galaxies or something ridiculous. This doesn't matter. That is the power of Bayer genetics. So when our people start, that's the foundation they can pick a hybrid off of. And it's 4 to 6 years as we start to get it out in the field, we start to test it. Is it going to bring performance? Is it going to bring plant health? And as you get closer and closer to commercialization, the number of locations, environments, we increase it. In fact, by the time a DEKALB grower experiences a hybrid, we've tested 3 years of that product, 2 in R&D and 1 with our field sales teams, and our breeders are all along the way. And what's so cool about this process is you look at that's where the consistency comes from. There's not a year that we don't test for southern rust very early in the pipeline. Gosses wilt, early in the pipeline. Green snap, early in the pipeline. When you start with that many options, you can get rid of a lot early for other things that are so important to growers, so you get that consistency year over year.
Every time you and I get to chit chat, I always learn something from you. Even if it's the hallway, we're just chatting, I always learn something about corn, which I love. So my question to you is, from the 90s to the 2000s, 2010s to today, how has selecting hybrids become more efficient, and how has that process changed throughout the last few decades?
Yeah, you think about in the 90s and the 2000s, Monsanto had traits, but they didn't have germplasm. And so what happened at that time is they were able to bring those together, and they did it incredibly well. They DEKALB, Asgrow, Holden's. And what probably the most important thing that happened in that era, Tom, was the germplasm is so key, but it was also the breeders and the knowledge, that finesse to know what's going to work well. And what we saw is DEKALB just took off in the marketplace from a performance perspective, a share perspective. Growers loved that experience. And what that then enabled was this idea of this broad acre placement, right? So the next big step for us was, how do we start to test east, west, Nebraska to Ohio to get those 5438s, to get the 6835s, to go anywhere hybrid. And that was the next big leap, was our ability to know how hybrids are going to perform across the 97 million acres of corn hybrids that are out there this year. But now how do we go faster?
Yeah.
So now you have the foundation you've built. You built it with your breeders, your testing, your genetics. And so now enter the digital era. It's hard pressed to find any area of something like you hear of, like an Amazon or a Google, whether it's AI, that we're not already incorporating into breeding. So our breeders focus more now on the future technology and that foundation, because they don't have to necessarily go out and take stand counts anymore.
That's right.
Turns out I was terrible at stand counts as a kid. It was like 1, 2, there's probably 100 there, right? A drone can do that for us now, so our breeders aren't going to have to go do that. Now they can spend more time talking about early season emergence with growers. They can start talking more about, hey, what does it look like if you're going to be planting earlier than your grandpa did by 4 weeks? And what kind of corn hybrids need to be developed? And then that's where they balance it. It's the art and the science, right? Because they're going to be out in the field talking, seeing it. But now we have the ability to go faster with all these tools and digital. And if we just balance it so incredibly well, then there's the special item. It's Marana, Arizona. So you can start to take all of the things that we're doing there and breed 3 times faster than what a breeder who, give him a shout out, he knows who he is, 54, 38, and 40. What that legendary breeder could do in a year, he could do now 3 times a year, and through the greenhouse in Marana.
And that's an amazing facility. We both had the opportunity to go out there, and it's incredible.
But that really brings it to life, because you said, is it 17 septillion, or how many septillion?
7 septillion hybrids.
17 septillion is a lot. But still, when you were working through that, and in one season, we weren't able to unlock the full potential because we're still working with 7 septillion.
That's right.
But now we can take that data and then speed it up through Marana with 3 times the amount of...
3 times faster, but just think about it this way. It's not only going to bring more yield and plant health, but think about just how variable every year is now for us in the Corn Belt. So do we need more southern rust in Minnesota? We probably do. We can get that faster. We need tar spot tolerance. We can bring it faster. Corn leafhopper in the South, we can bring it faster. And what's so amazing is because your genetics is so broad and deep, you can pull from it, but now we can identify it faster, but also bring it to market faster with the technology and our breeders, what they're capable of doing now.
But I still love the thought that we're not getting rid of a breeder and the art that they can do. We're just speeding up how they can paint that picture.
Yeah, being in the field for us has never been more important. In the sense that it's not just being in touch with the grower, but it's just how dynamic things set in. If you look at Northern Illinois this year, tar spot was identified the first week of June, second week of June, right? And how do you then start to address that? What does that management program need to look like? What's that hybrid exposure, right? As an industry, but our people have that ability to go out and breed and work with our agronomists like Jamie used to be, and really just get after and bring solutions to a grower that really can make a difference.
And I think that's super important too. You hit on, the local teams. I think particularly as we're having that feedback from what do farmers, what do different areas need, like that feedback is going straight from the grower to the agronomist or the rep, right back to our breeding program or to Josh Tooley, who picks our, DEKALB products. But then vice versa too. I think, we're continuing to launch new products faster, bring new products out. And so that, as we think about our portfolio, you're not planning the same product for 10 years anymore. It's like, hey, that new product is better than the product I have today. I need to know quicker in the field how it's going to, be positioned on my fields, on my acres, across my entire operation.
Yeah, we talk a lot, Jamie, about that too, of this next generation of breeding and meeting the needs as customer focused. We call it precision breeding. But what's really interesting, and here's something, Tom, you can learn that I haven't probably talked to you about before, is we've actually readjusted all of our breeding metrics to be a customer dollar value.
Oh, that's cool. That's
so
really
every time that we are, either it's a person or a algorithm or both, everything that we're generating is output, is value to a grower. And so if you really want to talk about breeding for your people, it's no longer this is good or bad on a scale. It's, hey, this is what this will mean and impact the bottom line. And we do that across our entire breeding engine globally.
It's interesting. When did we start doing that?
When precision breeding started in 2020, that was one of the core emphases of it. And we translated, and some of it's translated, right? Hey, guess what? Yield is the number one most important variable. We can put a dollar amount to that, but can you start to put the dollar amount to plant health, agronomics? Can you start to then say, hey, this is going to be the impact of a really dry year and why our genetics is going to, perform incredibly well? Why a wet year, why it's going to perform incredibly well. And we can start to do things that really translate that value to that grower. And that's how we choose those hybrids.
So precision breeding started in 2020. Are we just then getting close to starting to realize some of those?
Yeah. So in 2020, what was so cool about precision breeding is that, a lot of times I feel like other companies might say, hey, we're going to do something, but it's 10 years out. There are the core niches of precision breeding. There's two major buckets. One is the AI, the digital, that's already impacting. That's started now today. The idea of translating how we think about our growers to a dollar value started today. Marana's maybe the cherry on top, a big one, but that's already testing products. We're already seeing commercial products coming out of there. And then longer term, you think about things that folks like Mike Graham and Brian Neighbor talk about, digital twin. There will be a day where my dad, will be able to look across the field and go, I have never taken new field. I've never planted corn there. But I can get a soil test, I can understand the historical yield there, and I can get a pretty dang close estimation of what I need to do on that field, powered by FieldView.
Powered by FieldView.
But you'll have a simulation that is so eerily accurate because of how much history we already have on that hybrid, that field, and the years, the weather. It's going to be incredible.
Love that powered by FieldView shout out, by the way, there, Alex. But I think it's really interesting. And what is cool too, hearing those dates. So you said 2020, right? And then we did acquire Climate Corporation in 2014, 2015. We still are celebrating the 10th anniversary.
You love that 10th anniversary, don't
always
you,
hit that until, we wrap up here in a few months. But, it's neat to start to see all the pieces, and we're seeing that come together now, especially as we think about Preceon in the future and other products as we move forward. But maybe you could touch on that a little bit too, like what you've seen and learned with Preceon. It's been a few years now for some of our groundbreakers. We know we have a lot of DEKALB folks participating in groundbreakers as well. What's the experience been like, and any color you could add to it? And maybe, I don't know if you got an ad in
to
there.
start, I know, and in my basic knowledge of corn products, what we have today for Preceon is a conventionally bred product, correct?
Yeah, so there's a few things I love to start with Preceon is a couple facts or thoughts. So I'll start with a personal story. In 2020, literally where I grew up was the center of the derecho in Iowa. So after the devastating, and a conversation shortly thereafter would have short corn at the time, Preceon, helped? That was the question from my dad. The answer was absolutely yes, because guess what? About 10 miles away, we had a trial, and it stood. Couple that with the fact that they had desire to optimize your densities and go higher. Planting populations have flatlined in Iowa over the last 10 years. Why? Standability. Is there a desire because more plants is more bushels? Absolutely. Preceon does break open that next level of yield, whether you're in a 30-inch or a 20-inch row for corn. What we've learned is that this is definitely the true definition of high-touch innovation.
Yep.
But growers want it. They're hungry for it. So my opinion, this will be the predominant technology for us over the next, starting now into the future. What we see right now is that we've got a native trait, so a breeding trait. That allows us to go fast. That's why we're so far ahead of the market, is we've got a breeding native trait that allows us to come out with DEKALB and Channel and our other brands to really say, hey, here's the experience that we see. What we saw last year in FieldView was a Preceon groundbreaker. So growers are helping us test and learn. We saw an 8 bushel advantage of Preceon hybrids in the system over the operational average of that farm. So that's when you go talk to your dad or you go talk to your grower and say, hey, this was better than the average of your farm. I think it was like a 64% win rate. 64% of the time, it was better than the average. Keep in mind, a legendary hybrid for us is like 70% win rate, 75. Yeah. That's a great place to start. And we're not even onto the biotech trait. So coming later this decade, we'll have a biotech trait. Think about scale, Marana going faster. It allows us to just scale and go much broader acre base. But the reality is we're already seeing the pull from growers to want this type of product to meet their needs.
So we're already seeing advances, but then when we get to that biotech trait, what will we see when we get to?
Yeah, you'll see a lot. You'll see deeper offerings in the lineup. You'll see DEKALB hybrids in the lineup. Right now it's with the Preceon brand. You will see that movement into that north as well. But we expect to see a really strong push of a lot of corn acres. If you think about the Interstate 80 corridor, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Nebraska, I'll throw some Minnesota, Wisconsin, South Dakota in there. There's a lot of high productivity acres that fit Preceon. And as we see that ear height variability, that we're getting really good at that, by the way, of being able to dial in ear height for even more pitchy ground and such, you're going to see a hybrid that's a Preceon hybrid fit a ton of acres, especially as we get to the biotech trait.
Yep. And hey, just for fun, a shout out to the I-70 crew, just because we love Missouri, but we know I-80 is important too.
As well.
I-64 as well. We can go in Illinois.
We haven't even talked about Highway 47.
No. Well, we're just getting really deep.
But so I love the focus we have on, science and then moving things into the future. I love also that we're leading, and we have been leading for a while. But part of this whole Preceon thing, we've heard from other people, is the experience.
Yep, totally.
So Jamie, I'd look to you a little bit when you think about how we're changing how we deliver products to customers, how we partner with customers and their advisors. What are you, excited about or learning from Preceon and that whole experience that we're delivering?
And one more thing, just to add to that too, the digital piece that comes along with it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I think about as we move forward, and there's a lot of great innovation to come, but I think as we think about all the decisions that growers have to make, that our, retailers and sellers have to make, our field teams and how fast things are changing, and how many different things they're thinking about at all times. To me, it's really how do we simplify that and utilize the digital insights and data that we have, that our growers, have on their farm, to be able to really quickly and easily make recommendations, make changes on the forefront. And especially with Preceon, it's a great opportunity to say, hey, when we do this and we do it well, that's when we see that step change in yield and performance too.
100%.
And so there's great tools, with us partnering with FieldView, and we can chat on, Advisor and starting to pilot that. But that's a great way for us to deliver those insights on our products and how we should place them, how we're characterizing, how we start pulling in this really truly digital and insights into, instead of, hey, I've got a poorly drained, field on the back 40 and, I'm thinking what product should I plant there? We can be very confident and simple in how we're starting to recommend. And once we know where we're recommending, be proactive in how we're managing in season. Going back to Preceon, we'll be able to be in season a lot more. How can we understand some of the in season factors that we can maximize yield through different things in that growing season too?
So Jamie, I know one of the cool things about Preceon, and everyone here has been working on Preceon in some way, whether it's us from the FieldView perspective, the corn perspective, the DEKALB perspective. Our teams have been working really closely together. How do you see the DEKALB brand, even maybe this is a peek behind the curtain, evolving in the next few years? Because this is going to change how corn is planted, how that experience of corn is, right? What's your thoughts? I mean, do you have a crystal ball a little bit you could share what you see kind of the next few years looking like as Preceon slowly comes more and more closer to market?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had a crystal ball, I'd be retired.
Well, that'd be a good day too.
But I can do my best. From a DEKALB perspective, I would say, I think I've said it a few times, we're continuing to focus on performance. You see it from our NCGA yield contest perspective, that our growers are focused on maximizing performance, but also maximizing ROI. I think what we'll see as we move into the future from a DEKALB and a Preceon perspective is one continuing to be the backbone of that performance and innovation and ROI, but to be able to do it a lot more efficiently and to be able to get those insights to our growers more quickly and have kind of that differentiated experience with DEKALB and what you're purchasing from a DEKALB perspective, but also from some of the inputs that you have as well. We'll understand a lot more where it's not just every field is planted at 33,000 and we're planting this product across. We can get really prescriptive on how we're managing those products across the field. And I think it'll be a lot easier. I think we were talking this week of can we, to your Southern Rust standpoint, say, hey, you've got a concern of Southern Rust. We can populate this in, and it's going to pull us all the top products that, from a DEKALB perspective, that are our top-rated Southern Rust that we can pull in and say, hey, here's our portfolio. Oh, and now that you've picked this, since you picked this product, we'd start to recommend this. It starts to feel a little bit more like going on Amazon where, I bought this shirt. Well, hey, I'd recommend this, this pair of pants with it because I had that. So I think it'll really look quite a bit different here in the next few years.
Yeah, I got to tell a story on this too. Is I was with our Nebraska team in July on Preceon, and we were in a DEKALB plot. And sometimes you'll be in a tall corn plot. You'll be walking through the hybrids, and then the Preceon will be there. Yeah. And this was one of the first times where they started there. And they were like, hey, you got to come take a look at this and that. And what was so amazing is Preceon is at the point now where you can see a DEKALB team saying, hey, I see how this works for me. I see how this is going to make a difference. And it's not just it's going to be the next 110-day hybrid. It's, hey, my growers want to go here, and hey, I see that, right? And that's testament to this learning process we've done with DEKALB and this groundbreakers experience that you see through FieldView. It just clicks, and then all of a sudden they just go, and they wanted to pull. It was just an eye-opening experience for me because it was like, well, shoot, maybe we do that.
Like, got the people excited.
Yeah,
right. Let's listen to him.
Let's listen.
And we did ask a similar question to Bill, what his vision, what he would see if he had his crystal ball in the future. And he did say in 2030, the fields are going to look a little bit shorter. But not every field is going to be short. And I'm kind of interested in this conversation we're having up in Nebraska with plots, because we've heard when we had the Penny for Your Thoughts guys on the podcast, Penny was talking about how people are taking what they're learning and seeing through digital platforms with Preceon, their short-statured corn, and they're then applying that to their tall-statured corn. So can you talk a little bit about what we're learning through experiences like Preceon that also apply to my other DEKALB acres? Yeah,
I think that it's the management piece for sure. I think it's the idea of, we talked about already earlier about how planting densities have flatlined in Iowa, but you see Preceon and you see that opportunity to go higher in densities. It does make you start to challenge, do I need to be going more population on my tall as well, but then managing that crop effectively, right? So you think about Southern, great example, hey, I'm going to push my densities in my tall corn, but hey, I know that I got to be really focused on my standability, so I'm going to put that second pass of fungicide down because I've got Southern Rust coming in heavy, and hey, I'm going to be able to pull through, and that's that intermingling that you're describing, Andy, of taking Preceon learnings of high management, high touch innovation, and then applying it to that whole operation and lifting. A high tide lifts all boats, right? So it's like lifting up even more yield for these growers is a theme that you're hearing in 25 for sure.
So one thing on that piece with Preceon too, right? And maybe applying some of the functionality as we think of the experience to tall corn. Maybe unpack a little bit, Alex, and Jamie too, on scripting. How can scripting, especially when we offer scripting with FieldView, a ton of our partners do scripting themselves for their customers. What is that value to scripting, especially with the corn acre?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, as I look through fields that I have walked on or been a part of, there's not a lot, at least where I'm from, there's not a lot of just super uniform fields. I think as we start to really going back to the ROI and we're really getting honed in on how do I maximize yields across the entire operation and focus on what's that return on investment, I think that gets really important, not even from a seed scripting perspective, but kind of looking holistically at everything, and that we're not just broadcast applying everything because that's what we've always done and that's what we can do and it works fine. But how do we make sure, we've got the right amount of seeds out there, we've got the right products, we've got the right fertility at the right timing for those corn products. Really going back to just how do we overall take yields to the next level, because especially, depending on commodity prices, bushels are what pays the bills. And so how do we maximize those bushels at the end of the year?
Love that.
I see a world where 36,000 plants per acre 10 years ago and 36,000 plants per acre 10 years from now is 100 bushels different.
100 bushels,
I'm going to go that bold. Part of it will be the hybrids.
I love it too.
But and hear me out. So if you've got a field and the field average is 36,000 plants per acre and you broadcast it, right, you're going to get X amount of bushels. But we flatline on densities. You theoretically with Preceon have a world where, hey, you probably need to be at 48,000 plants per acre on this part of the field. And hey, you probably need to be at 20,000 plants per acre. You're going to average out to 36, but hey, by the way, you're going to be so prescriptive what we know that field is capable of doing. One, because we know the actual harvest data, got to collect the data, but we're able to understand the management required. And it's really more of a question of, do we have a technology that can get us up where we need to be up? So 100 bushels, 50 bushels, more bushels, right? Like, I do think that's what's going to happen. That's a bold claim.
Remind me again, there's a number, right? Every seed before it goes in the ground, what is the number?
Well, the number has gone up over and over. I remember when I was taking plant science classes, years ago, the theoretical yield potential of a corn plant was maybe 400 bushels. And now, several years ago, we're over 600.
We're over 600 now. And that's just such that's a testament to both breeding and management, right? As genetics improve, but the management improves. And the biggest thing is, how do you get the consistency of that? And the biggest thing is standability and ability to manage it. And that's Preceon.
Let's talk a little bit about what we saw in 2025. And I know, you could go across the countryside and there might be a few different stories, but, Alex, share what were you seeing from a disease perspective, a challenge perspective? What did some of our customers face, whether it was with a Bayer product or maybe a competitive product?
Yeah, 24 and 25 couldn't be more different. 25 felt normal. Planting outside of Illinois and Indiana went in pretty normal, and then you got unprecedented rain and got planted late in Illinois and Indiana, but it sure caught up with heat, right? We had in the Eastern Corn Belt the highest overnight temperature average in July of all time. And what we really saw was that DEKALB genetics really shined through. And then we saw southern rust set in. The core Corn Belt, even as far north as into Minnesota, I think one of the most striking images I saw this year was a DEKALB hybrid 10213 against a competitor hybrid. And it was truly spot the difference of just how much southern rust had set in on the competitor and just how healthy we were in a 102-day hybrid. And we just saw that story play itself out throughout the entire year. The newer DEKALB products, our commitment to southern rust really is shining through right now. Not only on just overall appearance, but we're seeing yield performance. We're seeing that fungicide response is improved with these hybrids. And then right now, ready for a little FieldView insights?
Yep.
Can't wait.
Always.
So right now, if you were to look at those key Corn Belt states where we got those high productivity acres, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, an average DEKALB grower is having a 10 bushel better experience than they did in 24. As of right now, we got about 50% of our corn acres in, and you could average about 222 bushels an acre, whereas last year would have been about 212. So you're seeing a couple things play out there. One, it was a top end year. In the Corn Belt. You're seeing the DEKALB genetics respond to the stress of the year like they did in 2012, 2017, 2013. You're seeing that pull through, and we're seeing yield levels that, despite the challenges we've got, really pulling through.
That's an awesome story.
It is.
Yeah, so another big thing that we started hearing about in July was this overly tight tassel wrap and pollination issues. And it really started bubbling up in Illinois, but quite frankly became widespread, all the way into Nebraska, Minnesota. You saw this across pretty much the entire United States. And what was really rather striking for us was tassel wrap was very non-existent, almost not present in any of our hybrids. We had good tassel extension, we had good pollination throughout the year, but it was very evident that in some of our competitors, as we started to get pictures in, it's not uncommon that every grower that I've met this year, almost everyone has been showing me a picture of poor seed set. That's going to show up in the bin. And so as we think about this, is, a question that I often get asked is, hey, this is a one-off thing, right? And I have a hard time with that because planting was pretty normal, timely, maybe a little later. We had normal high temperatures. We've had a pretty normal fall. It's been hot, but is that uncommon? Probably not. The variable is the high overnight temperatures. Is that the main driver? That's what Purdue has suggested as the main contributor. And that's something where if you talk to most folks, they think that's going to be more of a common thing. So as far as tassel wrap being a major impact on our portfolio going forward, I'm pretty optimistic we're going to be in good shape because I do think it's a phenomenon we will see again. And I know, Jamie, you and your team have seen a lot of opportunity with just educating folks on why DEKALB has not had this issue. And do you want to talk about that? Yeah,
I think it goes back to the breeders and the breeding program that we have and really selecting for strong tassels. And that's certainly, we want to unwrap your yield potential with DEKALB and really have a great experience from, really hitting that good pollination and leading to good kernel set within DEKALB. And so, we saw that as an opportunity to really be on the forefront of how do we start to educate and understand, because there really wasn't much articles out there. When we got to July, there was a lot of questions around it, and kudos to our field teams and to our breeders and to all the folks on the DEKALB team who were able to really rally and understand what's going on and move forward and be able to be leaders in educating and avoiding hopefully that into the future with a strong DEKALB product.
Yeah, shout out to Lance Tarchioni. I think he had a nice little write-up there on one of your guys'
he was one of the first ones that we had an article with. Lance does a great job there in West Central Illinois.
Ask the agronomist, right?
Yeah.
Ask the agronomist.
That's right. Always lean on him for great insights, and really all of our agronomists. But yeah, Lance did a great job of really taking it and understanding, hey, what does this mean? What's the impact? And how do we avoid this for our growers?
I do want to rewind a little bit because you're talking about that example where we were side by side and it was DEKALB against a competitor. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's an FSR here in Missouri, and we have the program Seed Showcase where we, encourage you to put a DEKALB product up against one of our competitors. And we've changed a little bit about how we recommend those products. And can you talk a little bit about relative maturity and how, we talk about RMs and maybe some of our competitors?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I think has happened over the last 20 years or so is that the amount of GDUs available throughout the year has gone up, and a couple things have happened. So the first thing that's happened at the grower level is more full season maturity further north. When I was growing up on Interstate 80, you would say that's 105, maybe 109 would be your full season. We're at 116 day, no questions asked. We're cutting, it's October, right? Like it's early harvest, and we had 116 day corn out. And so you're seeing the corn belt move north, and we've definitely adapted that as well. You think about, I think we got even 68, 35 in Minnesota or South Dakota this year, 118 day in the north. But we're also seeing that some of our competitors have started to maybe realign a little more aggressively, right? You're starting to see a 110 of today, maybe is more of like a 114 of 10 years ago. And so you're seeing that from a Seed Showcase perspective, you're starting to see us make those recommendations more effectively, but also you're starting to see our products start to adapt to that as well, because we really want to have a grower experience a modern day 110 or 112, right? Where that maybe 10 years ago would have been more of a fuller season product. But one, the appetite there for growers to have more full season is there, but two, making it simple so growers really can make the right comparison in Seed Showcase to see the DEKALB advantage shine through.
I think that's super critical as we look at any data insights. I know folks are going to be sitting 100%. Down and looking at their yield analysis within FieldView this fall and trying to understand and make comparisons. And I think that's where looking at that, utilizing your advisors and the trusted folks that you have to help understand, hey, what's going on here? Is it a relative maturity difference? Is it planting date differences? Is it how products handled different situations differently or how it was managed? I think this is always an exciting time of year to really sit down and start to look back of, hey, that product didn't do well or that product did great. Well, why? How? What's the difference across the farm so that you can make better insights for next year?
Yeah, and I think that's where DEKALB has such an edge, Jamie. When you think about just the industry issues we have of today, whether it's southern rust or tar spot, 25 could also be summarized as did you fungicide or not?
Did you fungicide or not?
And in some cases, did you do it a second time?
Yeah.
Right? And so really having that trusted advisor in DEKALB, having the products, but also having the right management program, Preceon or DEKALB Tall, is just going to shine through more and more. When you think about corn being $4, you need every bushel you can get. And that's where I think bringing it all together with your seed, your management, and your CP is truly where I'm seeing growers shine this year in a tough environment.
So I feel like we've been talking a lot about what we've been seeing, and the word advisor has come up a lot. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. Can we talk about from the DEKALB brand perspective, or maybe just like Bayer as a whole, what kind of an emphasis and focus are we putting on advisors, and what are we doing to help them have new conversations with customers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that how do we help those conversations digitally be able to occur a lot more seamlessly? I mean, we wake up and breathe every day DEKALB, but I don't think that's the norm across. If you looked at all of our, all of our sellers, all of our, retailers that we work with, all of our growers, for that matter as well. And so how do we drive those conversations and help to aid in how that management can be improved for next year? And so, we're piloting this year in partnership with FieldView and certainly looking forward to Preceon of an advisor experience where, our teams and our sellers can really take all of the insights that we have and start to make recommendations from a product standpoint, from an in-season management perspective, down to the field level, and drive those conversations and help growers, sit down and look at what happened this year. And to Alex's point, hey, what were some of the issues that we had and how do we improve that for next year and have those? So I think we'll see more of an emphasis as we try to unlock those new yield potentials and having folks to really lean on and help make those decisions.
I'll tell you what, the thing about that whole piece with advisors and with DEKALB and with what we're doing in corn that just really excites me is just, I feel like we've had a lot of different, very exciting pieces of the puzzle sitting in front of us. And as we move forward, everything's coming together to start to tell this great story on this broader DEKALB and Bayer acre. And that really excites me moving forward, especially from a digital perspective, because I feel better than ever, more integrated with DEKALB and really a part of that new brand experience that we're going to bring to life, not only for our farmers, but for our advisors too. Absolutely. And I think of the wide lens and the value chain. It has to have value at every single level. And I mean, I think, you think about things like our corn products, obviously has value for our farmer customers, higher yields, and Bayer as a company, but then things with like Preceon, driving more fertility, more in-season conversations, engages our advisors and our retailers. So it's a process and a experience that's set up to win. 100%. Now that we're getting to the end of the conversation, if you could talk about the next class of not just Preceon, but just DEKALB products as a whole, what would your pitch be? Yeah, so I think for Preceon, I can give a little teaser for our next end of year event is 3 of our 60 series hybrids are at this current time beating our tall corn checks, which is kind of a key milestone for us as we think about just, hey, consistently being Preceon in the marketplace is huge. And we see that those Preceon hybrids are probably running about 10 bushels better than our current Preceon lineup as well. So the foundation is built, Andy, in Preceon, and we're going to keep building that until we get to the biotech. As far as the future goes, I am super excited about the next class. What's really fun about my job and the team is we'll about 75 people in 2 weeks get together and we will choose the 2027 DEKALB products. And what I'm so excited about is the pipeline looks good. And good in terms of like consistently bringing more yield, absolutely. But I, love where we're at on plant health. Love the southern rust tolerance that we'll be able to look at. Goss's wilt for the west looks really quite good so far. So as far as the future goes for germplasm, it looks great. 28, 29, 30, you'll start to see some of that speed breeding, if you will, start to come to light. So it's going to start to accelerate, which is good. And then let's just not forget that corn rootworm is not going away. And we've got corn rootworm 4 coming as well to Preceon here as well. So we're on the tip of an iceberg that's going to get really fun here really quickly. No, that's exciting. Sounds like the dynasty is going to continue. Absolutely. So, Jamie, one of the things as we think of the DEKALB brand is the legacy of the brand. And, you've been on the brand now a few years. When you look back, what do you want to see and look at the brand and you say, you know what, I did that. I was a part of DEKALB. This was something I accomplished with that DEKALB brand and that legacy?
I mean, that's a great question. I think we've done a lot over the 8 years that I've been with the brand. And I mean, even going back to being a kid and growing up on a farm and having DEKALB, I mean, there's a long legacy there. You think of over a century of success that we've seen with the DEKALB brand. That's a lot of weight on somebody's shoulders and the whole team's shoulders to continue to represent a brand, wear that logo on your chest very proudly. I think for me, we're really at a turning point here of taking yields to the next level and really focusing on that history, but bringing it into the future of corn as well.
Love that.
And so I think that as what we're building now is going to be a standard in years to come. And so I think really getting honed in on what that experience is really critical for me personally to say, like, we've set the stage to maximize yields and launch DEKALB into the future.
Love it. Propel it to that next level.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, I think I'm sitting here today for a reason, and I can remember a conversation that I'm not farming back home. And it was my grandfather pulling me aside, and I was interested in being a breeder, and he said, you'll make more impact by going into the industry beyond just us, just our family. You need to go do this. And there's very few brands that you can go to in the marketplace like DEKALB and truly make that big of a difference. And that's honestly the legacy I want to leave, is truly this idea that, hey, in my time in this job, working with the DEKALB team, that I can look back and say, hey, every single time a grower planted DEKALB, they had an opportunity to take their experience, their livelihood to another level. And that's, like I said, one of the few brands you can do that with is the DEKALB brand.
All started with the conversation with your grandpa.
All started with Robert Renaud.
You almost got a tear out of Jamie.
Shout out to my grandma who's listening to this.
Well, hey, Alex and Jamie, appreciate you sharing the stories. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts on DEKALB. And Alex is always educating us more on corn. And it's an exciting time for Bayer, and it's an exciting time for DEKALB. And as both of Andy and I are on the FieldView business, we're excited to be collaborating closer than ever with the brand and being a part of this experience ahead. But, I think what I've taken away today is the future's bright. There's a lot of opportunity ahead. There's a lot of new coming, and farmers, advisors, they should be excited.
Yeah, the future's bright, and it's built on a very vast legacy of history.
That's right.
And performance. So I know I learned a lot, and if you feel like you've learned a lot as well, and you're interested in subscribing to more, this has been Around the Farm, the podcast about all things ag. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time Around the Farm.